Oh, what's up, YouTube? You are tapped in to the Mary Podcast, episode 4, where we talk about what it means to be merry when you're feeling high and when you're feeling low. All right, so let's get into it. This day, we are talking about the book town of Pukchan, which is in Korea, naturally, as I am in Korea. Stationed myself here not too long ago, January 7th. So that was pretty fun. And I've been here for 2 months and a day, which is nice. And I'll be here for another 11 months at least. Okay. We are also going to talk about the proportion of triathlon training for triathlon, just different variations of how long triathlon are, the Ironman duration statistics. Uh, yeah. So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. All right. Yeah. All right. We'll talk about Walt Whitman and we'll talk about Ecclesiastes 3. So I'll get my books at some point, but first of all, the book town of Pukchan is awesome. All right. So it's an hour and a half north of me. I went to see my friend, one of my best Korean friends. His name is Seung I'll have to get him on the podcast one day. We biked Jeju together and we have met on Discord and we've been friends since November, since before I came out. I got my job and he's just been really encouraging ever since. He's the first day I got here, I didn't have shampoo or conditioner. Um, and he actually ordered shampoo, conditioner, and a wall adapter for me. And um, it's been great. Like he said, just get me dinner when you're out. So I got him some Korean barbecue, and we've been good friends. Uh, it's hard when you're in quarantine. If you leave the house for even to take your trash out, then you could get deported. Like it's brutal. Um, so I didn't take my trash out. I didn't go out to the store to get shampoo, but thankfully I have Seungjun. And so yeah, we were out. He invited me over to his place for some samgyeopsal. Oh yeah, by the way, samgyeopsal is just Korean for Korean barbecue. You know, that good old pork that you throw on the grill and you just let it sizzle, and you flip it, then you put in a lettuce wrap. I have a video about it. Check it out. Um, Actually, that was way. It's like the raw fish version of samgyeopsal. Anyways, um, so yeah, I was in Pukchan, and he said that it's the book town, and I was like, "What? That's crazy! No way!" So we go to this area, and there's just like publishing houses. There's like bookshelves up to like 15 stories high. There's like famous professors in Korea that donate their English and Korean books, and it's just really a spectacle. There was like some printing press variation that was invented in Korea, and they have a big statue devoted to it. They have a whole bunch of literary characters, both Korean and American. They have a used bookstore. I was in this used bookstore, and it was so narrow. Like each aisle, you could fit like one and a half people. And I was just lost in the books because I haven't been in a bookstore in 2 months. And I'll be honest, I was not expecting how much I would miss a bookstore full of English books. Oh my gosh. Yesterday I hit 3 bookstores, and the most books I saw, nonfiction, was at my church. And so it's just wild because there are books everywhere. Literally 70% of Koreans have a college degree. Like nearly 100% are literate, you know, can read very well, and it's been that way since 1400s, since the Joseon dynasty. Praise Sejong the Great. And so It's just fascinating because in Hangul, the man Sejong, he created Hangul for his country. And I don't know how many kings create things for their people like that. Like to create a whole language, a whole alphabet for your people, for the common man, so that the common man can be literate and rise up. I mean, that's ideally what a king should do, but is it what a king or a president does do? I don't know. But regardless of that, yeah, the city of Pukchan is a beautiful town. Beautiful town. I was in this bookstore and I ended up picking out 4 books before Sungjun, or June as I call him, June rushed me out of the store. He's like, "Come on, dude, we gotta go. We gotta go." I think if I was in there any longer, I would have spent the rest of my money before I got paid. I got a Walt Whitman Greatest Collection for $5 or 5,000 won, Ochon won. I got a book called Thinking Fast and Slow for 25 chunwan, or Iman chon, Iman ochunwan. I got a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff in Love for Ochanwan. And yeah, I love used bookstores. They're great because they're reusing something that would have just sat on a shelf and collected dust, but like it means so much to your heart and your soul. Like it fulfills you, or it fulfills me. And so yeah, that was really nice to just get books again and get reading. It's funny how the Lord slash the universe provides, because on the way to Pukchan, I finished my book, Think Like a Monk, a 280-page book I bought on Kindle because I don't have access to books easy in English in Korea. So I bought this book on Amazon, and this book was awesome. It was so good. But when it finished, I was expecting it to be 300 pages, and it was 280. So I was like, no, my book. But then I went to the city of Pukchan. Isn't that crazy how the universe just gives you what you need? If you're hungry, you find food. If you're thirsting knowledge, you find books. If you find the book city. So Pukchan is like, it was a heaven sent. I really love Pukchan. I'll have to go back there soon. It's really close to North Korea. My friend suggested going near North Korea and uh, taking a cable car and seeing North Korea, and I was like, why not just go? Why not just like swim the river, go to North Korea? He said, no, that's a dumb idea. You'll get killed. And I was like, I agree. Good point. So that's what's nice. I think hanging out with June, because he's a local, I can trust him. Um, I can trust him like 19 out of 20 times. And I'm a very free spirit, but he keeps that free spirit from getting into trouble, like going to prison or getting killed in a North Korean labor camp. So, you know, thank God for the freedom of speech, by the way, and I can say all this. So praise Korea, praise America. It's so nice. I love it. I love it. Okay. So as far as Ironman distance goes, the Ironman is a race that comprises 146 miles. For you foreigners, or natives, I should say, who use the metric system, that is 140.6 times 1.6, which gives you 225 kilometers, or 224.96 kilometers. Let's just say 225. Okay, so uh, 96,000 athletes per year register for Ironman races. Naturally, not in 2020 because all the races got prolonged to the following year. Sadly, tier 96 times $800 per race. Let's do some simple math here. 96, and that's the early rate, times 800. The Ironman company lost $7 million and $7,680,000 last year on race registration alone. That's not sponsorship, that's not viewership, that's not random support. That's just $7.6 million down the drain. Down the drain. But regardless of that, Ironman takes place in 90 countries, regions, and territories. So it takes place all over America naturally. The national competition, the main event, if you will, is in Hawaii on Kona, where the invention of Ironman took place back in 1982. If you want more information on that, I will explain it. Drop a comment below. Be sure to subscribe. But yeah, essentially, it was invented in the 80s. The golden era of triathlon was from, I'd say, 80s to 90s. Yeah, mid 90s. It's still great. It's still a great event. But anywho, so the proportion of swimming to running to biking, you have a 2.4 mile, 3.9 kilometer run, or swim rather. So or 3.9 divided by 2. It's actually more accurate if I use miles, so I apologize. 2.4 divided by 140.6. It is um, roughly 1% of the race. However, distance, purely distance, it is 0.7% of the race. However, that being said, I will say that um, like you are in the water for about 1 hour or 2 hours, or depending how fast you are, it really varies whether you're professional or an amateur. But so it roughly comprises 10%, I would say. So 10% of the event. Um, and then biking is 112 miles. So 112 divided by 140.6 gives you 79% of the distance. So it's 79.65% of the distance. Let's say 80% of the distance. However, you're cycling faster, much faster than you're running or you're swimming. Naturally, you have wheels, you're on a machine. The machine is aerodynamic. They say 70% of the aerodynamics of cycling, it comes from the body position, and then the other 30% comes from the legs. I can't remember if that's the International Cycling Channel on YouTube, or NSCA, or my biomechanics textbook, or my professor, uh, or my Trek bike company that told me that. But yeah, roughly 70% is from body position, 30% is from the bike itself. And so these triathlon bikes are extremely aerodynamic, designed to make you go fast, be in a position that's uncomfortable, to be honest, or comfortable, depending on your perception on life, I guess. And so you can go 20 miles per hour, you can go 15 miles per hour, you can go 25. Some pro athletes go 30. Let's see what Lionel Sanders does, because he's a good example of a pro. Lionel Sanders, cycling speed, Kona 2019. Yeah, because that was the last event that he raced for Kona, which is the world champs, as you remember. Uh, yeah, so cycling. Essentially, okay. Yeah, all right. So he goes fast, right? He goes about 30 miles per hour, which is fantastic. So he clears that in like 4 or 5 hours, or three. No. 5 hours at the minimum, like 3, 4 hours at the minimum. Anyways, he drives fast. All right, kid goes fast, and then 26.2 mile run. 26.2 mile run. As you know, that's a marathon, 42.2K. So that is roughly 1 Let me see the math. Let me see the math. 26.2 divided by 140.6, and we have 18%. So as you can see, 1% is 18.63, roughly 19%. So 1% is swimming, 19% is running, 80% is biking. This is naturally skewed because of how fast you bike and stuff like that, and how much effort is required to run and swim. So I'd say the most effort is required to swim, the least amount of effort is required to cycle. But ultimately, when you get tuned in to each of these disciplines, then you have a difficult time doing all of these. Cycling becomes difficult, running becomes difficult, swimming becomes difficult. These athletes do this event at 2 to 3, or zone 2 to 3, sometimes 65, sometimes 75, sometimes 85 is out of the question. For a marathon, you can go 85, but 75% effort, max effort, is probably ideal for these athletes because they're exercising for 8 hours, 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours minimum for this race. They're purely exercising. Transitions are quick, within like a minute. They're eating on the go. They're, whatever. I mean, it's intense. It's intense for 8 hours. It's a whole day of work, a whole work day of just exercising. Can you imagine the adventure? Mm. Anywho, so roughly, I would say that 10% is the swim, 60% is the bike, and 30% is the run. Even though the run is 18.6% of the total distance, I would say that the effort that you have to put in is much greater. So I would skew that. So it's 30% running, uh, and then it's 60% biking and 10% swimming. Now, why I multiply that 1% distance times 10 is because swimming is a full body workout, and you have to rotate your arms, you have to you have to propel your hips back and forth, you have to point your toes are constantly flexed. Even with a wetsuit, 3.9 kilometers in open water is intense. Like, in a pool, you're flipping every 25 yards or 50 meters, depending on if your pool is short course, American, or Olympic, European. Yeah, so it's 25 yards or it's 50 meters. And so you only have to swim that much distance before you get to flip turn. And you're in a lane, so you know you're going straight because you're staring at that black line the whole time. And you just flip over, and then you flip back, and you swim out. So, like, you're swimming about 80% in the pool because you're pushing off the wall, and your wall should be at least 5 yards. That push off the wall, at least 5 yards. So I'm just saying, like, in open water, things get wild. And unless you have a lake or an ocean near you, it's hard to train open water. So that 1% can go to 10% very quickly. Not to mention the wake. If you're swimming in the ocean, you're not prepared for the physics and the biomechanics of, like, should you aim to the right of of the buoy if you're swimming and the current's pushing you to the right or the left, you have to think about these things. Plus, you might be getting kicked in the face. You have to, like, look up in front of you. So that's not like the most proficient. Alligator eyes, you have to develop that skill. Let's see, what else makes it difficult? Just everything makes it difficult. Uh, so yeah, I mean, that's why it's 10%. And the bike, as you have heard me rant and rave about it, the 112-mile bike, is 60%. I would give, like, it's technically 80% of the race per distance, but at the same time, like, 80% of the race, but you're on a bike that's cost more than, a used car, and you're if you could afford it, if you save up for it for months, 6 months, whatever it takes, 9 months, whatever it takes, squirrel away that money, put it in a boot. Doesn't matter. But You have a 2000 bike between your legs, $2,000 bike between your legs that's fine-tuned to make you go fast. And so when you're riding and you can use your upper body to eat and drink and you have constant access to water, I'm sorry, but that's just not as hard as swimming or running. Like it's easier technically. And I say that with a grain of bias. I will say, I've been swimming competitively off and on since I was 5 years old. I stopped swimming from 12 to 15 because I moved from Ohio where swim team was super cheap to the suburbs in North Carolina where swim team was like $100 a month. And you best believe with 6 kids, my mom's not gonna spring for that. Plus the pool was like 30 minutes away and I don't even know if I asked to be honest, but I didn't realize how passionate I was about it until I was 20. Um, so naturally, I've been swimming for 20 years, easy math, and I've been running for 5 years, distance, that is, and I've been s- biking for only two since 2018, coming on 3 years in October. So, I mean, I love it. I do. I love cycling and all of that, but I am new to it. So naturally, I think cycling is easier than running and swimming. Besides that, running off of the bike is a whole new experience. You're not ready for it. Like you're biking, right? So your legs are spaghetti. You're using clip-in pedals, so you are using your hamstrings which you're not used to using when you're running. You're using your quads to brace for impact and your calves to push off. But when you're cycling, it's part hamstring, a large part. So if you have weak hamstrings, it will come out on the run off the bike. It will. You might get an IT band injury. You might just mess up your legs. You might just not feel normal the whole run. And so that's why it's the 18%, the 18.6% turns into 30%. So, yeah. I would say if you want to train for a um Ironman, it gets complicated. Whether it's LSD, long slow distance, not the acid, whatever, the tab thing, the candy makes you trip or whatever, long slow distance. If I say LSD, it's always long slow distance. I don't really do hard drugs, so I just kind of talk about long slow distance because that is my hard drug. The first time I did long slow distance, I was 20. Uh, uh, Confession time. I'm Grant, and I'm a long, slow distance-aholic. Uh, when I was 20 years old, I was working in a onion ring factory and a mozzarella stick factory in Tiffin, Ohio. Shout out to Tiffin, the 419. Uh, and After work one day, it was my second year in the factory, second summer, and I was um I was tired, but I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go for a jog anyways. And so I ran to my memorial park where I usually turn around. But today, that day, something inside me, it said to do something different. Maybe it was internal peer pressure. And so my conscience just said, you know what? Instead of running the fast 3 mile that you usually run, how about you slow down? How about you take it easy and just go at 60%, right? 65, whatever. And so I was like, yeah, yeah, maybe I will go for an extra mile today. And that mile came, and I wasn't ready to give up yet. So I was like, maybe another mile, just at this nice easy pace. And then yeah, another mile came, and I was like, why not run to this other park in town? And I was like, yeah. And so I ran to that park, and I just decided, why not run past my oldest friends, Jacob English and Adam Young's house? Why don't I just run past those guys' house and just for fun? And so I did, and I got back on South Monroe Street where my house is at, and I was just jogging, and I was having a good time. And I looked down at my GPS watch, and and at my phone actually. I didn't have a GPS watch at the time, and it said 8.7 miles, an hour and 10 minutes, and I was like, wow, this is it. And since then, I've been literally addicted to LSD. Um, LSD made my life, but I don't know if it ruined my life or made my life. It's been with me forever. I once got a 50 on a pharmacology slash pathopharmacology rather slash pathophysiology test, and I was like, shit. Well, I don't have this, but you know what I am good at? That LSD. So I just went out for a hit of that LSD, and I just jogged. I just jogged after that test. I said, I'll jog another mile till I feel better. And after that mile, I said, I'll jog another mile till I feel better. Sure enough, 13.1 miles went by, and I did feel better. And an hour and 35 minutes later, I did feel better. But you know, yeah, LSD is it's quite a beautiful thing. I hope you get your flow state in whatever you do. Uh, thanks for watching. Let's see if I have any other topics to talk about. Ah, Walt Whitman and Ecclesiastes 3. All right, 1 second. I'll try not to get too preachy with it. Try not to get too preachy with it. But there is a book I'd like to read. It's called like To the Presidents or To Yeah, To the Presidents. That's right. I believe it's on page 280. Birds of Passage. It's in Walt Whitman's Birds of Passage. I just got this book from Pukchan, the book city, and no, that's not it. To a President, 299. To a President is a very good book. Walt Whitman became famous in 1850, and he just published a lot of stuff. In 1855, he published Leaves of Grass. In 1855, he published Song of Myself, which is 1,300 lines. Go ahead and read that if you want to, but I'll just read this one. Uh, yeah. To a President. All you are doing and saying is to America dangled mirages. You have not learned of nature, of the politics of nature. You have not learned the great amplitude, rectitude, and impartiality. You have not seen that only such as they are for these states, and that what is less then they must sooner or later lift off from these states. Lovely. So, my favorite line in there is to a president. All you are doing is saying is to America dangled mirages. Now, it's in Old English, so it's a little different reading. All you are. All you are doing and saying is to America dangled mirages. Dang. Tangled mirages? You kidding me? That's awesome. I love Walt Whitman. He's a poet. You know what they say? Poetry doesn't make money, but money doesn't make poetry. Yeah. And then I would like to read Ecclesiastes before I let you guys go. Thank you so much for tuning in, tapping in. It's after Proverbs. Yeah. Ecclesiastes 3, a time for everything. There's a time for every season, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to heal and a time to kill. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. That's Ecclesiastes 3. This has been the Merry podcast where we talk about what it means to be merry when you're feeling high and when you're feeling low. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you so much for listening. Uh, Take it easy. Peace be with you. Later.